What's going on, everybody? Chris Kazama here at E3 2016 in the Sony booth, and I gotta say, my favorite game here at E3 so far is Farpoint. The guy next to me that you're seeing, his name is Randy. He's the co-founder of Impulse Gear, and these guys have been working hard, really hard on this game that you guys just seen for the first time in the Sony conference this year. Now, Randy, I gotta say, man, I played Riggs last year. I played a couple other PSVR games, but this one right here, I'm a shooter guy. I'm a first-person shooter guy, third-person shooter guy, and the immersion factor in this game is absolutely incredible. So tell me about the development that went on in this game, because obviously, you know, the story builds around, you know, a pilot that's lost trying to find his co-pilots, and he's on this desolate island full of creatures that he has no idea what they are, just aliens. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so Impulse Gear has been really trying to deliver a core game experience for VR, and we've decided to tackle the first-person shooter genre. So to do that, we've been working with Sony to develop what's called the PSVR aim controller. This is a new platform peripheral for the PlayStation VR. Other developers are going to be able to use it as well, but Impulse Gear has been working really hard to bring this one-to-one motion to the first-person shooter genre. When you put yourself in there, you really feel like you're immersed. You really feel like you are holding the in-game weapon, and it has an exact physical representation with the physical blaster that you're holding.
Okay. So speaking of the blaster, this is the gun that we're talking about. People, they didn't even present this at the Sony conference. You had to come here and check it out just to play it, and this gun is dope. So tell me about the development that kind of went around this weapon and more weapons that we may see in the game, if you could.
Yeah, so the PSVR aim controller, which is what we're seeing here, really was developed to make an awesome, really concrete, grounded experience when you're inside of the VR headset. We're able to use it in ways that you wouldn't be able to use it, play with a traditional controller. So when you're using the PSVR aim, it feels like you are holding the weapon that you see inside of the game. It's really interesting to be able to turn the weapon around and look at all of the different facets in a way that you couldn't do in shooters before. One thing that I really like, we've incorporated sights into our guns, so you can lift them up and actually look through the sight of the weapon, just like you would expect to be able to do in the real world. It just builds for a really compelling experience.
Okay, so we talked about the gameplay, and we know the gameplay is immersive, but let's go back to the story really quickly. How deep is this story?
So we're really trying to, figure out what a core game length is for VR titles. Impulse Gear is trying to build a multi-hour experience here, so we're definitely trying to build the narrative in as a core piece of the game and not just something that's tacked on after. It's definitely something that is to the core of what we're building here. As you're progressing through the story, you'll find holograms and you'll be moving through and trying to figure out what has happened to your other team members. So as you're kind of moving through the world, you'll see the experiences that they experienced, and you'll be trying to figure out where they are and what has happened to them.
Okay, so let's talk about the creatures, because they have some really horrifying creatures. I mean, this thing looks like a spider. Some of them are really small, but they can attack you really fast, and they have some big ones with a couple different abilities, and I can't spoil the end of it because it's absolutely nuts. But just talk about the inspiration behind the creatures and the development behind them, the art style.
Yeah, so there's a few things that we're showing today. We basically have our spider creatures. These are the fauna of the planet, so they're the creatures that actually have lived on the planet. We're also showing a few other types of creatures that are in our trailer, right? So we have a drone type character, which is a flying creature, and then there's a few other ones that we're holding off on before we release. But some of the things that we've been trying to do with our characters and creature design is really incorporate them, allow them to move around in the world in a way that you don't typically see in a shooter, because with the PSVR aim controller, you have such accuracy and you can move so quickly that we want to be able to have the player moving around and shooting up and down and behind them, like moving around and shooting in these different areas. We can really rely on the PSVR aim to create new types of creatures that you don't see typically in shooters.
Okay, so me and Randy were talking before we started recording. He said these guys have been working hard for about a year on Farpoint, and with PlayStation VR and virtual reality being such a new thing in the gaming market, and people are going crazy for it, and it's, you got PlayStation VR coming out in October, and there's so many other things like Oculus and things like that. What's the most exciting process in development for you as far as this gaming, seeing the other first-person shooter experiences, and then you coming up with Farpoint, which is first-person shooter, but it's virtual reality, and the immersion is absolutely nuts?
I mean, what's so exciting about this is we're building the game that we want to play. Like we're all shooter fans at Impulse Gear, and we're building something that is exactly what we would want. Nobody else had been delivering this type of experience yet, and we thought we would tackle the challenge and try to do it ourselves.
Okay. So one last question. When I go home, people always ask me, Chris, what is VR like? Can you tell us more about VR? Tell me how it feels. And I really can't explain it. It's hard to explain because you really have to put the headset on yourself and play it for yourself to really understand how it is. So for the people at home, PlayStation VR comes out in October. But as far as Farpoint, which I'm recommending that you pick this game up day one. I'm putting it all out there. Tell the people at home, why should you pick up Farpoint when it releases?
So Farpoint gives you a totally new way to play a shooter. It's something that when you experience it, it might be difficult to go back to the traditional way of shooting. I've had people play this game that are not very good at twin stick shooters, cannot play mouse and keyboard shooters, and they come in and they play extremely well. The accuracy level is unprecedented for somebody who doesn't play shooters. We're really just giving you a new way to play that really makes it feel like you are part of the game.
All right, well, that's it, people. This is Randy from Impulse Gear. You guys keep a good ear out and a good eye out for these guys because they got something special coming up for PlayStation VR. You got to try it out. I'm Chris Kazama with JunkieMonkeys.com. Stay tuned with JunkieMonkeys.com for all PlayStation VR footage coming soon. Peace.